بسم الله.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. يلا هلا. المشكلة ما فيها stand is not the stand. Raza, do you know this one doesn't fit the normal stands, do you know? Okay, you have to be very quiet, please.
Most people, they don't stay with them fast.
Papa, stay on it. Papa's coming.
Constant meat. Your stomach becomes a cemetery for animals.
I know. And how do you, most of us grew up eating rice. You know, how do you eat without rice?
I know. What do you you just eat chicken by itself. No, there's some like keto replacement sources, I think. I remember. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you can move on. You want to say صلوا على محمد? صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أدعوك يا ربي كما أمرتني، فاستجب لي كما وعدتني، إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء، وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء، وخضع لها كل شيء، وذل لها كل شيء، وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء، وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء، وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء، وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء، وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس، يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبت وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عمل القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترت وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلت وكم من عثار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعت وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرت. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بخيانتها ومطالي يا سيدي. فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في الأحوال كلها رؤوفا
وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك. وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك، وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري، غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا ربي ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي، يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد من طوى علي قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت، أو تبعد من أدنيت، أو تشرد من آويت، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادحا، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى الأوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنا. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرن بفضلك عنك يا كريم. يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه، قليل مكثو يسير بقاؤه، قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها أضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي، صبرت على عذابك، فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك، فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجاء عفوك؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمه؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانا؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفا؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربا؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك، ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك، وقضيت به من أخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كانت لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك، أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما: أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها، وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمت وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمت، وكل ذنب أذنبت، وكل قبيح أسررت، وكل جهل عملت، كتمته أو أعلنت، أخفيته أو أظهرت، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني، وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم. وبرحمتك أخفيت، وبفضلك سترت، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير تنزل، أو إحسان تفضل، أو بر تنشر، أو رزق تبسط، أو ذنب تغفر، أو خطأ تستر. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي، يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي، أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا، وبخدمتك موصولا، وأعمالي عندك مقبولا، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي، يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي قو على خدمتك جوارحي، واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أصرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في المبادرين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك. وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء، وذكره شفاء، وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء، وسلاحه البكاء. يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بي ما أنت أهله. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا. صل على محمد وآل محمد. For the marhumin of all those who are present here today, please recite Surah Al-Fatiha, but before it, the loudest of your salawat. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us today. Before we invite our speaker to the podium, just wanted to remind everybody that this Sunday, inshallah, we'll be having a gathering here at 6:30 p.m. for the wiladat of the holy imams alayhum salam. And without further ado, Sunday, I believe. Sunday, right, Hajj Ibrahim? Yes, Ali.
I think the email maybe was mistaken because it said it was for kids from 5 to 8, like 5 to 8 years old or something.
Oh, really?
The email I got, yeah.
Oh.
That's what I thought.
No, the Sunday should be for families. Yeah, there'll be a speaker here. Is the speaker Said Payam? Oh, Said Kashmiri, Said Muhammad Bakr Kashmiri, yeah. So we'll update that if the email did say so, but inshallah, please inform all your friends and family that there will be a event here at Yasin on Sunday. And without further ado, I'd like to invite our speaker, Said Payam, with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that would be nice. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Before we begin, let's recite the Fatiha for our Sayyid Mahmoud Fakhruddin, the father of Sayyid Muhammad and Hassan, and also the mother of Hajj Kazim Amini, who's in Masjid al-Nabi. His mother passed away. Let's recite a Fatiha and Qul Huwallahu Ahad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. May Allah have mercy upon your deceased, all the deceased of the mu'mineen and mu'minat. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد ما صلى على محمد وآل محمد. Since we have programs once a week, so we try to incorporate all the events as much as we can on Thursdays. This Sunday, there will be the remembrance of the birthday anniversaries of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Hazrat Abbas, and therefore we'll leave that speech for inshallah Sunday. A few days ago was the 27th of Rajab. Even though tonight technically it is the beginning of Sha'ban, I saw the moon myself, and I have pictures of it. If you have any doubt, I took 2 pictures of the moon while driving. So it is the beginning of Sha'ban. That is important for us because when Shahr Ramadan comes, you can count how many days it is from the beginning of Sha'ban. So it is the month of Sha'ban, but we had a very important night, which was the 27th. And we need to talk about that And that is when Jibreel came to Rasulullah and with the verse, recite, Iqra, and this begins the commencement of the religion of Islam, the commencement of Wahi and revelation. It is so important for us that even though we believe the Prophet, was he a prophet before? In the other alam, the other world, alam al-arwah, the world of spirits, yes, he was a prophet. He was actually Sayyidul Mursaleen. He was the teacher of the other prophets. And all the other prophets were learning from him. And actually, when you look at some of the traditions too, he was the teacher of the angels. Ahlul Bayt were the teachers of the angels. And they taught the angels how to glorify God because he was the first creation. He was the first creation of God. Therefore, he teaches the angels how to do tasbih, to praise God, how to do tahmeed, to thank God, to glorify God. So it's much different when you realize this and then you come to Badi'ul Wahi, the beginning of Revelation, the 27th of the month of Rajah, and you see that this happens. Some say it is the night of Mi'raj, even though we might not even have a hadith that talks about 27th being Mi'raj, even though Mi'raj happened a few times. Some say, for example, happened in Shahr Ramadan. We might not necessarily have that. But the most important thing, and I believe Allama Majlisi has it too, that everyone agrees, it is the 27th is the beginning, the commencement, the start of the revelation. And this for us is very important because it is the start of Islam. So we need to remember that as followers of Ahlul Bayt, this is was a very important night for us, and we need to talk about the commencement of revelation. When you look at one of the du'as that night, you see it says, Allahumma inni as'aluka bitajalli al-a'adham fi hadhihi al-layla min shahr al-mu'adham. Oh God, I ask you, because of this adim tajalli, this great manifestation in this night from this great night, or this great month. What does it mean that the tajalli of God happens in the night of the 27th? Tajalli means manifestation. Tajalli means that there are no more barriers, that God shows himself. So much so they say that the Rasulullah passed out. We have that he passed out, but of course his passing out is different than ours. He still understands, he hears. And this tajalli means that Rasulullah, our Prophet, was so close to God that God completely shows himself to him. And better, clearer to anybody else. Of course, this is a spiritual showing. It's not a physical that with the eyes or ears that you can see. So this in the cave of Hira, in the religion, we believe that the Prophet had a religion. True, the path was on the 40th, when he was 40 years old, was different. But he worshipped God. He would go to Hajj secretly. He worshipped, he prayed to Allah. And he had a religion. Actually, it says in the hadith that when the Prophet was weaned, from then on, an angel was sent to him to guide him. So he was very individually guided by an angel. So there's no debate for us or no question that did he know he was a prophet or not. It wasn't a big surprise. Yes, that occurrence is a special occurrence because it's the tajalli of God. It's the manifestation of God. But does it mean that, for example, when you look in Bukhari and different sources from the Sunnis, that he was confused, that he didn't know what happened? When you look and you see that in the hadith that they have in Bukhari, and I'll read for you, when Al-Amin, the honest one, it says in Bukhari 6,982, the angel caught me forcefully and pressed me so hard I could not bear it anymore. And he came to his wife, "O Khadija, what is wrong with me?" In Bukhari. Na'udhu billah, we don't accept these narrations, but I fear that something may have happened to me. So if we say this is impossible, and we're going to see the Shia version of this, that Rasulullah is saying, what happened to me? what's going on? Let's go ask, and Khadija mentions, let's go ask Waraqa, maybe he knows better. And then the revelation stops, but after a few days, Waraqa died and the divine inspiration was also paused. Rasulullah became so sad, we don't believe in this, as we have heard, and he intended several times to throw himself from the top of high mountains. And every time he went up on the top of a mountain in order to throw himself down, Jibreel would appear before him and say, "O Muhammad, you're indeed Allah's messenger in truth." So you see the distortion happening from the Umayyads, from the Abbasids, to bring down the position of Rasulullah as if it's randomly he won, na'udhu billah, prophethood. An angel comes to him, and now he doesn't know what's going on. He has to ask his wife what's going on, and this feeling of wanting to throw himself down. So let's look at the Shia version. And the Shia version we have in Tafsir Imam Askari alayhi salam. It says, recite, read, and it says, the Prophet descended the mountain as a sick person afflicted by fever, trembling because of the immensity and glory of the Lord which had appeared up into him. So that tajalli, fear and that tremble, the manifestation of God. That which worried him in the hadith it has and caused them fear and distress was that the Qurayshis were futile. Now he is a prophet. How am I going to convince my family members? How am I going to convince my tribe I'm a prophet? And the thought that they would consider him insane or possessed by a demon. To say, "Oh, I'm a prophet. Now I have to announce it myself to them." And that's hard for someone to announce that now I am a prophet. And that is the distress that he had. So therefore, we see in these two versions, and that is why some of our historians mention this, that when you look at the seerah of the Holy Prophet of Islam, this is one example. One example is Badul Wahy, the beginning of revelation. You have to make sure you take away all the influence from the Abbasids and the Umayyads, that their job was to put the Prophet of Islam down, unfortunately. And a lot of times when you look at satanic verses, or possibilities that shaitan can bring in a verse here and there, we separate this from our madhab. So what is revelation? Revelation is a way that God speaks to his prophets. Even though the term wahi in Arabic, it's called wahi, has been used throughout the Quran in different meanings. Some of the meanings, for example, Prophet Zakaria, فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ مِنَ الْمِحْرَابِ فَأَوْحَى إِلَيْهِمْ. So Prophet Zakaria came out to his people from the prayer chamber and signaled to them. Sometimes wahi is used as signaling, just signaling. Or sometimes it's used in the Quran, wahi is used as guidance, that God guided the bees. وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّهْلِ أَنِ اتَّخَذِي مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا. Take from the mountains a house. God guided them into this. Or you see, for example, the mother of Musa alayhi salam. وَأَوْحَى إِلَى أُمِّ مُوسَى أَنْ أَرْضِيهِ فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ. So we commanded, we could say inspired the mother of Musa to drop and put Musa alayhi salam, cast him in the river, put him, cast him in the river, and do not grieve and do not fear. So wahi in revelation is used in the Quran in this way as either a hidden notice, guidance, in a type of inspiration. But when we mean it and talk about wahi in revelation in theology, it means by the way that God talks to his prophet and the way that he's bringing legislative communication to them. He's bringing a new law to them. It's a legislative communication. The inspiration that happens to Musa, it's not legislative communication. The inspiration that happens to the holy imams is not legislative. It's not part of the Sharia. That they're going to give a new type of law, for example. That type of law that's brought to Rasulullah, that's called wahi. And that happens either in the process of conversation with God. It can happen with direct deliverance. It can even happen in a dream. Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail. the way that he would sacrifice his son would be in a dream. So sometimes the prophets would see in dreams, sometimes it's a conversation through other mediums. But the question is this, you as followers of Ahlul Bayt, you say the 27th of Rajab is when the revelation starts. Don't we have in the Quran verses that the Quran is sent in Shahr Ramadan? Inna anzalnahu fi Shahr Ramadan, for example, Laylatul Qadr. We descended it in the night of destiny. Or, Shahr Ramadan is in unzala fihi al-Quran. How can you say that 27th is the beginning of the Quran, but do you have in the Quran that it was revealed in Shahr Ramadan? Some answer this way, is that there has different types of dissensions of the Quran from different realms, you could say. One realm is from Lawh al-Mahfuz to Baytul Ma'mur, for example, it descends there. Or you could say in another way that it descends upon the heart of Rasulullah, daf'atan, all together, and that gradually the gradual or tadriji revelation of the Quran starts in 27th of Rajab. And slowly, the Quran is being descended, and as you have verses that are Madani, you have verses that are Makki, you see that according to the circumstances of the time, there's revelation. According to incidences that happen, there's sha'n and nuzul, the Quran is being revealed. So therefore, there is no problem with having the start of a gradual. And even the Arabs were asking why, and those that did not believe, they would ask, why is the Quran coming gradually? Why didn't the Quran just come as a book altogether? Because 23 years is a long time to wait. And they're just seeing verse and verse and verse and verse come. So for sure there was a gradual and tadriji, but the others are daf'atan, that the entire Quran comes upon the heart of Rasulullah. But it's not, for us it's not taught, it's not revealed then, but it's a knowledge that, Rasulullah would have. But what is for us, and what commences for us, is the start of Quran for us. That we hear in the world and sees the first verses of the Quran. And it is the start of Islam, the final religion of God. All of the other prophets had a religion of God, but the completion of it is from Rasulullah. So for us, the 27th of Rajab is a great day because it is the start of Islam. 1400 years ago, that the angel Jibreel comes and brings for us such an important message, a final message, until the day of judgment. The religion that there will be no other religion until the day of judgment. And you see that how important Islam is for us, how much it changes us, and how much we have to ask ourselves, how important is Islam for us? How important is the Quran for us? Is the Quran in a way that we are protecting it, we're reciting it, our lifestyle is based on the Quran, the way we live our lives? Or is the Quran just a book that you put aside? You might read some surahs or ayahs here and there, but it doesn't really cause you or shape the way that you live your life. They asked Ayatollah Bahjat this question, and people always ask, how am I going to be like when Imam of the age appears? How am I like with Imam Zaman? You see, we have a beautiful narration that both Shia and Sunni accept of narration of Thaqalain, two weighty things. Two things are equated or balanced with one another. One is the Quran, and the other is the family of the Prophet. So he says, if you want to see how you are with Ahlul Bayt, if you want to see how you are with Imam Zaman, look how you are with the Quran. Are you observing the Quran? Are you observing the commands of the Quran? Are you acting upon it? If you act upon the Quran, then also you're acting upon Thaqalain, on what Imam Zaman says. But how can somebody expect to be one of the close companions of the Holy Imam if they don't implement the Quran in their lives, their families? And the Quran is just a book for them that they keep for protection, even though it's important to keep for protection. It's a book that sometimes we think is only for when a dead person passes away, you recite some Quran for him. But the Quran has been separated from our lives. How many verses of the Quran do we have? How many times throughout the day do we mention the Quran? How does the Quran wake us up every day? They say if you read 10 verses a day, it takes you away from ghafla. 10 verses Some say, no, I'm already reciting Quran in my salat. Well, obviously, these traditions are not, those are wajib, but it's already, assuming you do that, inshallah, that you're already doing salah. But some 10 extra ayahs or some surahs, especially say Surah Yasin, because you love coming here and you love the Quran, you recite Surah Yasin, and how beneficial it is. And this, you act upon it, you hear the miracle of God. And for us, it is a great bounty and a great reward from God. Some of the hadiths say that the Quran, the fadl of the Quran upon other speech is the virtue of God compared to creation. So there's nothing in comparison with the Holy Quran. Every prophet came to prove their book. Every prophet first gave a miracle first. That, for example, you can say at least Prophet Musa alayhi salam performed his miracles, then he gave the book. Prophet Isa alayhi salam, Jesus had miracles, then he says, now that you believe me, look at this revelation. But for us, the miracle is the message. The Quran being a miracle is the message itself. And the Quran proves prophethood. The prophets would prove their message with miracles, but the Quran itself is a miracle. And if it was in any other way, you would say, well, I didn't see the miracles of the time of the prophet, but you do see the miracle of the Quran. It's in your homes, everywhere. And you see, once you get accustomed, I think one of the best ways to understand the eloquence of the Quran, the beauty of the Quran, is by reciting it, is by learning Arabic, is by seeing those deep concepts of God's existence, who God is, in the most easiest way. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. No, but the ahadiyat of God, God is one. Say He, huwa, those things that everybody is looking for. You could say huwa, that thing that everyone is asking about. Huwa Allah, that is Allah, who is ahad, He's one. Allahu samad, very beautiful. It's like when you want to identify somebody, you identify God by very short, this short verse in the Quran, and such deep meanings that samad, and then you explain about samad that it is an eternal refuge, that everything goes back to God, everything gets its existence from God. He is one. Not as if He's 2, 3, or 4. He is one, meaning that nothing is like Him. Allahu ahad, He is unique, nothing is like Him. Allahu samad, Allah has samadiyat. He is the eternal refuge. Everything goes back to God. And then talks about lam yalid wa lam yulad, about His birth, that He cannot give birth, He is not born. Wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. And nobody is like Him, nothing is like Him. So for us, it's, imagine at a time of worship of idols, a time of polytheism, and how beautifully Allah introduces Himself, that nothing is like Him. Everything goes back to Him. You could say, even in more philosophical terms, He is wajibul wujud. He is necessary existence. His existence is self-existing. He doesn't need anything to exist. He does not need a creator. But therefore, so that if He is necessary existence, and all of possible existence has to go back to Him. Everything has to get existence from Him, because everything we see in this world is mumkin, is possible, is not able to sustain themselves. They need existence. Everything we see needs a cause. So you see such a beautiful, in a surah that we see in Salat, we say kadhalika Allahu Rabbi after we see this. Or for example, Surah Tawheed, we say recite it in the Salat. It's good to recite it in your Salat. Make sure in one of your raka'at this Tawheed is mentioned. And it gives for you a identification, knowledge of God that is deeply needed in the world, especially those that had a background of polytheism, those that had a background that they wanted to compare God to man or to creation. And Surah Tawheed completely removes, because He's ahad, lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. No, He doesn't have any peers, nothing is like Him. Or other verses in the Quran, laysa kamithlihi shay, nothing is like Him. His existence is different existence. So you see beautifully that the Quran is a miracle that we have. It started in the 27th of Rajah, and it is something that we importantly need in our lives. And we said it causes us to stay away from ghafla, to stay away from neglecting God. It wakes us up. And people have talked about the miracles of the Quran. It's not limited only to the eloquence. It's not only limited to the fasahat of what fasaha, being fasih, means to say something in a very clear manner. It doesn't mean, it doesn't just, it's limited to that. It's limited by the way that it impacts man. It's one of the miracles is the way that it impacts man's life, the way that it changes people, the way that it changes you. That is another miracle of the Quran. And whoever comes to the Quran as a miracle, comes to the Quran, receives their answer. So the main miracle of the Quran is that Arabic, the eloquence, the balaghat. But the other miracles of the Quran, that it changes us, it impacts us, that verse, you read it, it shakes us up. That is one of the distinguishing traits of the Quran. The Quran, I will end with this, talks and identifies itself. And we see, Ya ayyuhan nas, قد جاءكم موعظة من ربكم وشفاء لما في صدور وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين. The Quran, O mankind, 1057, there has come to you instruction. The Quran identifies itself as a mu'adha. It identifies, which means instruction. It identifies itself as a shafa, as a healing, a cure. لما في الصدور وهدى, and third is guidance. And the fourth is rahma lil mu'minin. 4 qualities of this miracle that came the 27th of Rajah. When you talk about the Quran as mu'adha, it gives you advice. It tells those that, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. If you notice, most of the verses of the Quran, almost all of them, when you see Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, then there's a command. It says, those of you who have believed, now that you have believed, it's not saying, oh, ayyuhan nas. Oh, you who have believed, and then it talks about, gives a command, now do this. If you look at all over the Quran, maybe tens of times, this is, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu kutiba alaykum, or whatever. Whenever you say, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, there's a command after it. It's a mu'adha, it gives commands. It tells you what to do. It gives you information. What is the advice? What should you do in life? 2, it's shafa wa asharuna bil ma'ruf, for example, and live with your spouses, with your families, with ma'ruf and kindness. Is a shafa because it's giving you the cure. It's a shafa because it's telling you how to deal with people, how to have rahmah upon them. It's a shafa because if you even recite verses of the Quran to the sick, it will cure them. Imam Ali alayhi salam talks about the Quran. Says, Asta'inu bihi, ay bil Quran, ala la'awakum. Seek its existence in your distress. When you have distress, go to the Quran. For verily it contains the cure for the deadliest diseases. فَإِنَّ فِيهِ شَفَاءً مِنْ أَكْبَرِ الدَّعَاء. Not only is it shafa for healing, is it shafa, it has solutions, but it's shafa for this, وَهِيَ الْكُفْرِ. It's a shafa for disbelief. It cures disbelief. Those that read the Quran, they come to yaqeen. وَالنِّفَاقِ, hypocrisy. Imam Ali says the Quran is a book that removes us from hypocrisy. It takes us into sincere worship. Because when you read the Quran, you understand it is this direct speech of God. Therefore, it takes us away from hypocrisy, a phony type of religion, into a real and sincere type of religion. وَالْغَيِّ وَالضَّلَالِ, and takes us away from revolt and misguidance. And the third, the Quran is a guide. It guides us. It shows us the path. It shows us what the object of this world is, what the aim of this world is, objective in this world is. It teaches you about the hereafter, how that is real, how this world is an illusion. It guides you towards what is ubudiyat, what is the worship of God. Guides you towards sarat al-mustaqim, the right path. And the last is, it is a rahmah, because of the bounties that it has for us. It makes our life sweet. When you act upon the Quran, it is a rahmah lil alameen. Rahmah is a blessing that showers when you recite the Quran, you get blessings. When you find your answers in the Quran, it is a rahmah for you. So one of the biggest miracles, one of the main miracle of the Holy Prophet of Islam was brought to us in the 27th of Rajab, and it is for us a very special day, even though it has passed away. Inshallah, next year we can remember it even better. But for us, it's a big celebration in the month of Rajab because it is the start of Islam. It is the revelation of the Quran, inshallah. And now we have approached the month of Sha'ban, which is a month of many mawlids and acts of worship in the month of Sha'ban. The Imams, some of them, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Hussein, Hadrat Abbas's birthdays will inshallah celebrate on Sunday. Then we have Imam Ali Akbar's birthday. Then we have Nisf Sha'ban, the half of Sha'ban. And it is the month of Rasulullah, and it's a month that has its own du'as. And fasting in it was something that the Prophet of Islam did. And the nights that he was awake during such a month. And this will prepare us for the month of Ramadan, inshallah. So recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah. Ya Muhammad wa ajil farajah. Do we have any questions tonight? Yes, Brother Kaywa.
Just to understand that 27th of Rajab was the first verses of the Quran, but then in Laylatul Qadr it was the entire
Yeah.
Quran was revealed.
Yes. And also Laylatul Qadr also has Tanazzulul Malaika in it. The same. So angels, and it's in mudari' form, meaning that it's not in past tense. It means it's happening. Mudari' means either now, hal, or istiqbal, or in the future. That's what mudari' form means. So Tanazzulul Malaika means that the angels descend every year. In Laylatul Qadr, they all descend. It's also the sending of the angels. And one of the proofs that we have in hadith about Surah Qadr is prove our imamat by Surah Qadr. Because the angels came during the Prophet's time. And the Quran says it happens all the time. So where do the angels go the next Laylatul Qadr after the Prophet has passed away? So it goes to Imam Ali, and the hadith has. And after Imam Ali's, it's Imam Hassan's verse. Then, Surah. So you have Quran bring daf'atan all together, but also every qadr, the angels descend upon the infallible, the hujjat of God. Brother Ibrahim? Sorry.
Related to your discussion on encouraging us to reflect and to connect and reflect on the Holy Quran, the miracle that it is. In a recent conversation that I had with someone, they articulated to me that they felt that within, so I was curious your opinion on this. They said that to me they felt that within Shia communities that people there tends to be less of a culture to want to read and reflect and understand the Quran on our own than in other Muslim cultures. I told them I didn't necessarily, I didn't agree with that. I hadn't, heard people say that, oh no, you can't read and understand the Quran. You can only read the Quran and study it like a Muslim. I was curious, is this something like you've observed amongst Shias, or you would say that no, that's not something?
Maybe because we emphasize the fact that understanding the zahir of the Quran, understand the apparent meaning of the Quran is not that easy. It's not as you look at one verse here and, I understand it. We say the zahir has hujjiyat, has probative force for us. After you look at all the muqayyadat, after you look at all the mukhassasat, meaning after you look at all of those other things that are going to limit verses, or they're going to have a clause for them. For example, you can't just look at one verse and say, everything is halal for you, and just act upon that. You have to look at all the other verses and say, what else is haram? Then you can say, what is halal for you? And besides that, you'd also have to look at all the hadith, say, what else is haram for you? Because that's the bayan of the Quran, and that's explanation of the Quran, to be able to attach yourselves to the itlaq and the unconditional meaning of the Quran. You can't just say, oh, I looked at this verse and I understand it now. So we say after you look at all the bayan, after all the hadith, after you look at all the verses or even sayings that could limit the verse. So the verse's meaning actually is this. Because the Imams, we believe, had knowledge, and we have 250 years of bayan from the Imams. So it's very important when someone approaches that tafsir and just wants to look at the meaning, they also have to look at all the other tafsir, the explanations from the Imams and from the Holy Prophet of Islam, before they can even apply that and say that has probative force for me. Before it's a hujjiyat for me, they have to look at all the other narrations. So that is why we are sometimes a little hesitant to say this is even what the zahir of the Quran means, because for a scholar, a jurist, they cannot give a fatwa on one verse until they go through all the other possibilities and all the other, we say muqayyadat, and also mukhassasat of the verses, and then say, okay, now this is halal, now this is haram. In the same way in our own lives too. You'd have to look at the verses even when it comes to theology and see.
Would you say that though, so I definitely agree with that, but would you also say that there is a place, of course, for the layperson to read and not to necessarily say that, oh, yeah, I understand this, so that's exactly what it means, but to sort of, try to garner whatever level of understanding they can from the
Yes, that reflection, yeah.
reflection. I mean,
Yeah, that's okay. That's allowed, but we're trying to get away from tafsir bil-ra'i, to saying that my opinion is this on this verse, or this sounds nice to me, I think this is what it means. But yes, of course, the Quran is hudan lin-nas, is for the people. It's not just hudan lil-ulama. The Quran says hudan lin-nas. So you have, and it's encouraged to read and reflect, but it also encourages us to look at also the hadith at the same time. So maybe one of the reasons is because we have that 250 years of bayan of the Holy Quran that's supposed to be supplemented, because the Prophet of Islam came with the Quran. Then Imam Ali came that had ilm al-kitab, and the other Imams have ilm al-kitab, they have knowledge of the book. So, and in some ways, as I said, somewhere in between here, that the technicalities and obviously the fatwas and that probative force of the hujjah of the Quran is with the bayan of the Quran, but that individual use and that reflections, yes, is hudan lin-nas. They'll use it and think about it. But it's also, so we need two things here, I think, done. One is to read Quran by ourselves, the zahir, and read it. And the second is to supplement it with tafsir. From good scholars that have looked at the hadith, that have access to the hadith, good tafsir. At the same time, both. Not just to be extreme, I'm not going to read any Quran, just going to read tafsir. That's wrong too. To read the Quran, in a way that you complete it, inshallah. And also you look at the tafsir of Quran, those both good.
I guess this is just a little bit, I wanted a little more expansion on Kayvon's question about when you said the Quran was revealed to the Prophet in Laylatul Qadr, what about when, I thought the Quran would come down in situational things when, the Prophet was dealing with someone and relaying it comes down. I thought that was how the Quran was revealed.
Yeah, gradually, tadriji. That's how it is.
Oh, okay.
So you have both. That's so we said there's two types of revelations. Daf'i, one at once, and the other one is a revelation that the Prophet comes and teaches, inspired to him, by gradual. So those instances of sha'n and nuzul, that we have sha'n and nuzul, an instance happens and the verses are revealed, of course, that's explained by the tadriji, the gradual explanation. But all of it, because God has obviously knowledge of the future, and all of it together in the Quran being brought to the heart of the Prophet, that there's no problem with all that future knowledge. All of that knowledge is of coming to the Prophet of Islam. But coming for us, being revealed officially when it's needed, that's the gradual. So, yeah.
And then second was, how do we learn to fall in love with the Quran in a way? Because I feel like maybe after a whole day of working, spiritual, I don't know, evicts a different kind of emotion that I'm desiring. So how can we learn to love the Quran again and like make it more into our everyday life? Set time for it essentially.
First of all, that dua is something very good. That's like the Quran that's going towards the heavens. It's your du'as, that's the way you're talking to Allah, and you want your prayers to be answered. That's good. That's good to do du'a, which is mukhul ibadah, the center of worship. That's good too. And or to have, in salat, one of the best places to make very long is the qunut, the du'a part, because you're asking Allah, you're talking to Him direct from your words. But when you want to, just remember this, when you want to learn about somebody, you learn from their speech. You learn me and my ignorance from my speeches, for example. Or you learn about someone when they talk. When someone's quiet, you don't learn much about them. He's always quiet. You're always wondering, what is he? Does he speak English? Does he not speak? How does he talk? You don't know much about him until they speak. But you want to know who God is. How can you know who God is? One of the ways is by his speech, how he talks, what he says and how he says it. Just remember, when you approach the Quran, just remind yourself, this is how I want to know. If I want to know God, you know him by his speech. This is the speech of God. This is what he wants. When you want to talk to him, yeah, you do make du'as. But it's not always just you talking. You want, obviously, Allah to talk too. So you read from his speech and see what he wants to say and how he says it and what story he wants you to learn and everyone to learn. Just remember that. You want to learn more about God, read the Quran. Wasallallahu ala Sayyidina. Any sisters have questions? Wasallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ahli bayti tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli.
Inshallah, let's stand and face the Qibla. Recite Dua al-Hujjah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. Salawatuka alayhi wa ala aba'ih. في هذه الساعة وفي كل الساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات